In a prior show, a couple of months ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, we discussed the 5 things that tenants should be aware of to avoid landlord trouble. Now, we're going to flip it around and discuss the 5 things that landlords should be aware to avoid trouble with a tenant. So I'll let you start it off, and if you don't mind, I might provide a little color commentary as we go through it.
So the first thing on the list is to simply know your lease. You absolutely need to have a written lease. You need to have one that you're comfortable with. You need to have one that you understand. And if you don't understand it, get a knowledgeable attorney to explain it to you and potentially make changes that will benefit you as the landlord. Once you know that lease, you need to make sure that you follow it. It's there for your benefit as a landlord because you're the one that has drafted the lease and presented it to the tenant. So you need to make sure that you're actually following all of its provisions for your protection. Number 2 is to make the payment of rent easy for tenants to comply with and to be consistent with. You need to develop a procedure that's going to be easy for the tenant to follow. Because after all, you're not trying to set up a default. You're trying to make money at all of this. So you want to make that flow of money into you as easy as possible. But you also want to set up a system that's easy for you to use to prove any non-compliance. So rather than, for instance, setting up a system where, well, come and drop the rent off on my front porch, there'll be a box there to put it in. There's no way to prove when they did that or whether they did that without a Ring camera and so on. You want to make something, give them an ACH transaction, give them the ability to do those sorts of transactions. You'll get your money faster and it'll be easy to prove that they didn't comply. Number 3 is in your lease, you're going to have notice provisions. And these will run both ways. You want to make sure that as a landlord, you're enforcing the notice provisions. And part of that process is to set up notice provisions that will ensure that you actually get notice, assuming that the tenant follows those provisions. Don't use regular mail. Don't use certified mail. Use FedEx, UPS for reliability. And then you can include language in your lease that adds on emailed notice, but emailed notice shouldn't be sufficient notice. It should just be extra notice. I've run into all sorts of situations where folks said that they sent an email, maybe it got caught in your spam filter, you didn't see it in time, and that's not good notice to you. That's not the sort of notice that you want as a landlord, because you actually want to be aware of whatever the issue is that the tenant is trying to give you notice of as soon as possible. Number 4 is one of the big issues that comes up as a landlord are repair issues. So you need to develop a reliable system of documenting repair issues and their resolution. So assume that you've got good notice provisions in your lease. Your tenant gives you notice of some repair issue that needs to happen at the property. Under the lease, you're responsible for it. And you need to make sure that you've received that notice and then set up a system of actually going out, repairing it, and documenting every bit of that. Because one of the big things that tenants will claim once they're in breach is that there were unresolved repair issues that should relieve them of either their obligation to pay rent or prevent a dispossessory. Those are easily dealt with if the landlord has a system set up beforehand that documents all of this, and you can give your attorney or you can take to court yourself all of that evidence and prove your tenant wrong. The number 5 has to do with when your lease and your tenant have taken a turn for the worse and you're concerned about getting them out. Do not attempt any self-help eviction actions. Don't go out and try to change the locks or dispose of a tenant's property until you've actually either gotten a written acknowledgement from that tenant that they've vacated the property and abandoned whatever's left, or you've actually gone through a formal eviction action and had either the sheriff or the marshal, depending on what county you're in, go out and actually conduct the eviction.